vibration of creation, the cosmic hum. The eternal cyclic rhythm of earth, moon, and sun. Earth song is the ancient conversation between shore and sea. The love ballad between flower and bee. Earth song is the melody of mountains that rise and fall.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another interview in Embody The Empress, where we're having conversations about how to blossom and flourish in harmony with the natural world. I'm so excited today to have Rachel Starr with us. Rachel, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I just love the whole ethos and the beautiful branding of this summit. I'm so happy to be a part of it. It's beautiful.
Good. So just as a for the audience that haven't met you yet, just as a little snippet, my understanding of your journey is, you came into the world of tech, and we'll find out how you got there. But you had success, but it wasn't a satisfying sort of success. And so you went on a
Mhm.
journey to discover what creates satisfaction and success together, which is a
Mhm.
beautiful, if we can find that meaning in our work, it makes all the difference.
Mhm.
So from there, you went on a discovery journey of learning about human design and astrology. And we're going to dive into what human design is for those that don't know about it yet, because
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
favorite topic of mine.
Mhm.
And so in that journey, then moving from the corporate space into an entrepreneurial adventure, which is
Mhm.
very exciting. So what I
Yes.
want to do is just start like just giving us an idea of your story and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing now. I
Mhm.
love looking at who we are in that, like we're given from 14 to 21, we're given this kind of tool bag and then of who we are and how we feel about ourselves and what we think is possible for us, and then launched into womanhood. So
Mhm.
when you think about yourself at 21,
Mhm.
give me a picture, give us a picture of your experience of being that age, and what like what was your launching pad and what led you in the direction of going into tech.
This is an amazing question to answer. It's such a deep one. So at 21, I had just graduated from university in California.
Yeah.
And you know what's wild is I was just thinking about this today. It's heavy on my heart, the wildfires in Los Angeles right now. And it really has brought me back to that point. My 21st birthday, I was on campus in Malibu, and we had a massive fire. And it was very frightening, but I kicked into action. I was like, okay, let's get these people fed. Let's start some music and get some hope going. And let's let's, bring everyone together and feed the firefighters. And it's so interesting that you're asking me about, as I'm thinking about this, asking me about age 21. Age 21, I was, even though it started on a difficult note there on my birthday, it was an amazingly transformative year. And it was the year when, I really took the leap and decided I was going to move to London. So I said, you know what, I'm graduating this year. I know that I want to move to London. I know I want to get out of here and do this thing. And I had studied abroad in London twice. I'd studied in DC as well. And I just knew that London was a sort of home for me that I never felt where I'd never felt that I could fully be myself and that I was fully a woman until I went to London. It is in astrology, for astrology nerds out there, on my Mars line. And so this is where I really tap into my deepest desires. I start prioritizing my own needs. I stand up for myself and I find my passion. When you live on your Mars line, that is that fire energy. And so that's absolutely what I found here in London. And I'm so, it makes me feel alive. And so, coming over here, it was just saying yes to the adventure. And I think every time in my life when I have said yes to the crazy idea and yes to the adventure, it's absolutely paid off majorly. Even if I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, what London's going to hold for me. Just saying yes to that. And so I was someone who was very ambitious, very open to life, and really wanted to find my confidence. I was not at 21, I would say, a confident young woman, but I had drive and determination. And so I was like, I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the audacity of that age. And I've got, 4 children who are all sort of hovering around that
Mhm.
age. And
Yeah.
there is something so powerful in the willingness to just jump in and do something
Mhm.
because of, like it's that sort of adventurous thing. But I think the older
Yes.
we get, we lose more and more and more. But if we
Mm.
can tap back into that, and maybe you can guide us where to
Yeah.
find that.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things, it's so interesting that you spoke about, the words that you used was finding your womanhood. Was that so interesting?
Definitely.
Because this morning in the breakfast table with my son, we were having this, he's 17, he'll be 18 this year,
Oh.
and he doesn't want to be called a boy anymore. And he said it a couple of times, he wants to be called a man. And we've been having these
Mhm.
conversations about what is it to be a man.
Mhm.
And my experience is I didn't pull up my big girl pants until I was 36. And I don't necessarily
Mhm.
like telling that
Oh,
story.
that's a special age in astrology as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think in 7 year cycles, and I'm wondering, is that similar? Is that what you're?
It's the nodal return in astrology, and it's this big turning point of the path of your life. So
Yeah.
it's often quite challenging around age 36, 37,
Yeah.
but you come out knowing who you are and where you're going.
Yeah. Well, I call it my era. 36 to 42 was my era of reclamation. It was the
Mhm.
era of really discovering who I was. But
I'm right in there right now, and I feel that too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really powerful, pivotal 7 year period that's exciting.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Mhm.
so let's keep the story going. So from
Mhm.
from there, you ended up in the career of, well, like, what was the tech career?
Yes, absolutely. So almost by accident. So I went to do my master's
Mm,
abroad. That was the easiest way to immigrate, was to go to school. And so I
yep,
said, okay, well, I'll get one more degree. I don't really care about it, but I just wanted to get abroad. And so that was the easiest
yeah,
way of doing it. And so I did that, and then found myself by accident. Actually, I went to an interview. I thought it was about one job, and it ended up being about something else. I found myself in tech. I would never have thought I would end up in tech. It was so funny. It was such an accident, and everyone thought I was so smart. I was like, no, no, that was destiny. And so yeah, so I ended up working at a management consultancy, one of the big four in London, as a management consultant, specifically in strategy. And I worked with, well, actually, while I was there, I started the first ever fashion and luxury specific team. And there were aspects of it that were fulfilling. I was always someone who wanted to shake things up, always wanted to come with new ideas. And that's not always appreciated by, particular clients in certain sectors. But I tried my best to carve out my space. And I realized after a while that, it felt like my wings were not fully able to spread
yeah,
in the corporate world. And I realized that maybe I needed to go back to my old dream, my childhood dream of being the boss and having my own business. I'd
yeah,
always wanted that. I'd always wanted to be in charge. and have a dream and have a vision that I could get to realize. And working for big corporate, you just can't. You just can't. You can try your best, and I did. And so through one thing or another, I discovered astrology. I had this really kind of challenging time in my life where I just felt completely directionless. I felt like, who am I and why am I here? And I felt like I didn't understand myself. I might be crazy. What am I going through? It turns out I was going through my Saturn return. And yeah, late 20s, and I was, what's happening? I had a really, really difficult relationship that I was in at the time, but it all led me to discovering what you might call, spiritual well-being or alternative practices like meditation, working with astrology, crystals, etc.
Yeah.
And by discovering, the moon and discovering working with astrology, I started to know myself. And so my path to freedom has always been through knowing myself
Yeah.
and through understanding myself and eventually loving myself. And I
Mm.
really credit my diving headfirst into astrology, which I had always thought was a bunch of hooey. I credit my that journey, with my awakening, and it was beautiful. And
Yeah.
so that I just, it's one of those things when you discover something you're so passionate about and you're like, it works, it's true, it's amazing, it's life changing. You just can't not tell people.
Yeah.
And so I just started telling everyone and doing readings for everyone for free.
Yeah.
And then I kind of discovered my way
Yeah.
into coaching and using the cosmic.
It makes me think of that, and I might mess it up fractionally, but Dr. Maya Angelou, I don't know if you're familiar with her work,
Yes.
but she said you'll only be free when you learn that you belong no place, you belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, but the reward is great. And it's that, yeah.
That's great. That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Mhm.
takes a lot of contemplation to understand that quote.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can hear it in what you just were saying.
Mhm. Definitely. Definitely. I
Uh,
found it myself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's, you know, I feel so passionately that there are these extraordinarily powerful tools that we've been given, and somewhere along the way, we have been convinced that they're woo woo or rubbish. And, I
Yeah.
think back to the era possibly of witches and
Mhm.
the burning of women for using, heaven forbid, herbs to
Yes.
cure things and to birth
Yes.
children. And, there was a convincing in our ancestry that these extraordinarily powerful tools were
Mhm.
rubbish. And
Yes.
I feel if we can bring back the understanding of astrology and, the human design comes from I Ching and all of these
Yes.
tools, we have what we need to really discover much more deeply who we are and why we're here. This,
Mhm.
unending
Yes.
question that we all roll around in our minds.
Mhm.
So maybe if we maybe I'll let you choose intuitively. Where do you want to go first? Should we talk about astrology, or do you want to give a little idea into human design, which feels,
Mm. Let's start with human design,
yeah,
because I know I'll be talking more about astrology later
yeah,
as well. So we could start with HD. Yeah,
yeah. So when I'm
amazing.
listening to you and that desire to go back on your own and to lead, I'm wondering if you've got a line five.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course. I love that question. Thank you for
yeah,
that question. It makes me feel seen in a
yeah,
way. But yes, so I am a 2-5 in human design. So I have the
okay.
second line and the fifth line. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I'm a 3-5 and I'm a classic 3-5, which is why I didn't find it. I had to make a lot of mistakes.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And it's amazing. I find with my clients that it is the subconscious line that often gives us like the biggest challenges because we don't see it in ourselves
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
So for both of us, the 5 is the subconscious line, and we don't see it, but it will be a huge aspect of ourselves on the path. And there will be challenges that come from the 5, but we're much more aware of the challenges of the conscious line. So for you, yeah, the trial and error process. And then for me, a big challenge with the second line is not knowing what you're good at, not knowing what you're supposed to like do, what you have to offer the world,
Yeah.
and not seeing your own gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those in our audience that don't know what human design is, they may never have heard of it. How do
Mhm.
you give people the first sort of insight into
The
what human
elevator
design is
pitch.
and why we
Yes.
want to know about it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I describe human design as a system of personality and energy.
Yeah.
And it's very much a beautifully practical system.
Yeah.
And because most people I work with are working on building businesses and careers, so it's very strategic as well, which I love. And so a lot of people who would love to love astrology, but they feel like it's very conceptual. They really enjoy human design, because it is kind of it's very, I just keep using the word practical. It's practical magic. There's a lot of like, oh, this is how you interact with people.
Yeah.
Oh, this is how, this is a way that you can get better sleep. Like there's a lot of aspects of human design that are quite practical, but it essentially at its heart, it's about the exchange of you and the world, you
Yeah.
and other people, and how you can best do that. And I love that it incorporates, four major ancient cosmic systems. It incorporates astrology, as you said, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and the Hindu chakra system. And so all that wisdom put together into one system, it's like Christmas, and it's
Yeah.
highly detailed, highly specific. And the founder or the channeler of the system, Ra, once, his book about it is called The Science of Differentiation. And to me, that really is the heart of what it is as well. It shows us how different we are from each other at a very granular degree. And I just think it's incredible. He has this quote where he says, "We are the pattern looking at the pattern that is the pattern." Like we're just
Yeah.
looking at, and
Yeah.
it's just keeps unfolding and keeps unwinding. And so when you study systems like human design, you really start to understand the layers and layers and layers of who you are and who you can be with the different expressions. So
Yeah.
that's kind of I guess, a philosophical way of explaining it. I
Yeah.
can also talk about like the types and how, where to get started with human design as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting to look at the lines, and we might do that briefly because,
Yeah. Yeah, let's do
when
that.
I discovered, I spent my life believing that I was stupid and a human stuff up. And when I
Mhm.
learned about my lines as a 3-5, suddenly
Yes.
I saw the reasons why I've been on the path I've been on and
Mhm.
why I now am able to be such a stand for other people in
Mhm.
because of my life experience. It's
Mhm.
given me so much
Yes.
compassion. But understanding, it was interesting when I first did this. It was a little bit like astrology. I was like, yeah, like we'll see. And so I did it, and I did mine, and I was like, oh, this is so generic. This is, like it could be about anybody. And then I did my
Uh-huh.
best friends, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh no.
This is not generic at all. And the deeper
This
you
is
go
we think,
into,
yeah, we think
yeah,
everybody's like us, and this is part
yes,
of the extraordinary
yes,
gift that
yes.
I've found human design to be, because when you start to look
Mhm.
at it through your children, if you've got children, your
Oh,
partner,
yes.
yourself, your best friends, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, now I understand.
Now I understand you. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's really, I think,
Yeah,
why I just became obsessed with astrology and human design, because I really wanted to understand people.
yeah,
Like I number one really wanted to understand myself because I didn't think I made sense
yeah,
at all. Now I think I make complete sense
yeah,
because I now have a language.
yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, of course. That's just,
yeah.
but I really wanted to understand other people.
Mm,
And I just think that I wish this was required in school. Like
yeah,
if everyone could just learn astrology and human design, may there be peace in the world because we
yeah.
would actually understand like what's going on and what our differences are. Yeah.
And hopefully that's where the world's heading, because the
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
system needs a complete, I mean, the whole thing needs
Oh
to be
yeah.
dismantled and started again. But
Yeah.
hopefully this is something that will come in. We'll see.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
So
This is part of my
understanding,
goal to bring astrology to the mainstream. So yeah,
yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah, and just as a little side note for those that are listening, I am a student of Gene Keys more than
Mm.
human design, which is
Oh,
another
yes.
tool in
I
all
love
of
Gene
this.
Keys. Yeah.
But maybe if we give people, we'll just as a snapshot before we move on to astrology, as a snapshot for people to understand, if you can maybe just talk through
Mhm.
the 5 lines.
Yeah, definitely. Or six, definitely.
Sorry, 6 lines.
So, yeah, no, I'm saying, I know we think it ends with ours. It's the pinnacle.
Yes.
There's nothing else. Yes, I would love to do that. So, the way that I like to talk about the profile lines in human design is I often think of them as like our brand, like they kind of help explain things, but also our drives.
Mm,
They reveal a lot of why we do things the way that we do them.
yep.
And it's a wonderful way of understanding yourself. I always say start with type, but then go quickly to the profile lines. It can really help you so much to understand like some of your drives and nuances. And my human design teacher also called neuroses as well. So it's really helpful. So, so starting from number one.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, as I was saying earlier, that there's a conscious and a subconscious line.
Yep.
So when you're looking at your human design, the first number is conscious, the second number is subconscious, which is just what it sounds like. It's you're more aware of the first, you're less aware of the second, but they're both a really important part of you.
I should probably say, if anyone wants to pause it at this point and go and
Yeah.
get your human design, you do need
Oh,
to know
yes.
what time you were born. But it's
Yeah.
the same for astrology. But I use mybodygraph.com. I don't know if you've got a preferred.
Yeah, I always recommend jovianarchive.com, Jovian archive.com,
Okay.
because it's the one that's run by Ra's family now. And you
Okay.
can get a free chart anywhere, but I like that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Beautiful. All
Yeah.
right. So if anyone wants to do that, you can pause it and go and get it.
Yeah.
They're free to
Mhm.
download, and then you'll be able to, yeah, understand what
Follow
we're talking
along.
about.
Yes, yes. Yes, and this will help you understand yourself more, yeah, your loved ones, your kids, like it's really amazing. So the first line is called the investigator, and it's archetypal. Everything in human design is very archetypal. And so the investigator is someone who likes to get to the bottom of things, and their primary driver is they want to understand because they want to eliminate any kind of fear that they may feel about the world or like mystery. They don't want mystery. They just want to know things and they
Yeah.
want to get to the bottom of it to find out if something is, good or not good,
Yeah.
safe or not safe, strong or weak.
Yeah.
And so those people who have one lines, they're often very good researchers. They love to get into things. They love to know things. They want to have lots of information before they make a decision. It's that classic kind of, studious type of
Yeah.
person, I would say often.
Yeah.
Love to research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to say about that before I go to
I'm just
number
thinking of my
two?
eldest son, who's a 5-1.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, so if you are a first line, you want to lean into that. You don't want to resist any impulse that you have to learn,
Yeah.
But the thing to be careful of, I'll kind of do this, but don't do this. The thing to be careful of with the first line is perfectionism, because
Mm,
nothing is perfect.
mm,
It's not possible, and
yeah.
it's perfect the way it is. And also, kind of holding yourself back because sometimes
Mm,
first lines are like, no, I need one more degree or one more certification or I need 10 more years on this,
yeah.
and they can stop. They can hold themselves back from
Yeah.
going for whatever they want to do.
So a classic conversation with a one line, because I had this recently with my eldest son, who's
Yeah.
25, is the intuitively led versus logically led. And he's very
Yes.
logical. He needs all the pieces of the
Yeah.
puzzle, all the information, and he will find it out. And then
Mhm.
he will, he wants to make a logical decision. Whereas the best
Yes.
decisions I've made in my life as a 3-5 have been that intuitive. It makes no
Yes.
sense and nobody else around me understands, but I just have this
Yes.
sense that it's like, this is the way that I've got to go. And that does his head in.
Exactly. Yeah, no, totally. It's so interesting because
Yeah.
the one and the three are they don't have anything really in common. They're not
Mhm.
harmonic. And
Mhm.
so the one is like, I want to read about it before I do it. The three is like, I don't need the book. I want to try it. I want
Yep.
to roll my sleeves up and try it. So it's
Yep.
completely opposite approaches when
Yeah.
it comes to things. Yeah.
Yeah. And this
Helpful to
is,
know if it's someone
yeah,
you love. It's like helpful to
absolutely. And this is where we all come in because we need all the different
we need all
types
of
to
them.
make it all
Yes.
work. Okay. So
Yes,
line
definitely.
two.
Okay, line two is the hermit. And so the hermit, these are the original human design names. There's also a couple other names that people use nowadays, like you could call it the natural as well. But the hermit is someone who often has kind of a genius quality. They have a lot of talents. Often when they're younger, they could do anything. They're like, oh, I want to be an astronaut and I want to bake cookies and I want to be president and I want to be, it's like they could literally do anything. They often are very, it's easy for them to pick up things and skills, and they're very smart. But the challenge with that is that often they don't know where to put their energy and their effort. And so sometimes they can end up not putting effort anywhere. And then they're kind of aimless. And so the goal of the second line is to find how can I be of service? What are the things that the talents that I have and the things that I could do that could actually be useful and would bring me satisfaction at the same time. The
Mm.
second lines have to be careful of a couple of things. We call it the hermit because they do need time and space alone in order to follow their process and do the thing that they're a genius in. So if someone is a hermit and they are a genius in, music, they need time alone to do the music without anyone interfering and asking them and trying to guide them. Just let them do their thing. If they don't get that on a regular basis, they really start to feel anxious and crumble. And like, it's like because they're not doing their art, right? They need to have the space to do their art. So they need the alone time, but you don't want to retreat forever. And so it's a fine balance that you have to find as a two, of being alone, doing your thing, and then coming out and sharing it with the world because the world needs your art, right?
Yeah.
The other challenge is saying yes to everything because they're good at a lot of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
they say yes to everything. They're like, yeah, because they want to be, useful. Like they want to, like, yes, oh, someone needs this from me. They like when I do this, so I've got to do it, and so they have to recognize that, have healthy boundaries around being like, no, 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 but actually the thing that I want to make my thing, my career, my whatever needs to be something that satisfies me deeply.
Mm.
It can't only be because other people like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my one of my dearest friends that I said I went and did her human
Oh yeah.
design, and that's when I went, oh, we're so different. She's a classic line two. And my
Oh,
understanding of the line two is they're often the people that are born with a genius, but they don't recognize it because it's just effortless. They've
they don't
always
see
had
it.
it. That's
Yeah, they
her.
don't see it. Other people
Yeah.
have to recognize it. There's a
Yes.
projection field around them that
Yes.
stops them from kind of seeing it themselves. And so they're always looking like, what am I good at? What am I good at? I'm not good at anything. And actually, they're like very, very good at certain
Yes.
things. Yeah.
And that's
Mhm.
her to a T, and also the saying yes to everybody else.
Yeah.
I know she's going to
Yeah.
listen to this.
She's like called out. I love
Yes,
it.
that's right. You can call
So
me out now because we're going to do a line three.
okay, third line. So, yeah, so the third line is the martyr, but then it can also be called the explorer. But it's all about someone who needs to have a trial and error process with the world. They need to roll up their sleeves and do it. They can't just listen to like, they're not read the instructions people. Okay, no reading the instructions, just figure it out. Like jump
Yep.
in. And that's a beautiful thing because they really are examples of what courage is, like the third and resilience as well. A healthy third line person is very resilient because they're willing to fail. An unhealthy third line is afraid of failure, and so
Yep.
they don't try. And that's so sad because it's like trying things is your genius. Like that is what you're here to do, is to try things and figure it out, and then tell the rest of us how we can actually avoid the potholes, and share your story. I think if I need to double check. I think Brene Brown is a 3-5. But I know there are a lot of people out there who are famous for telling their story as role models and as examples of like what not to do, but also what to do. And it's really a powerful thing. So it's great if they can, yeah,
Yeah.
if you can embrace this side of yourself and not feel any kind of shame or embarrassment of the failure. If you can really tap in, that's really important. Yeah, that's
My
the
my coach, human design teacher, Melanie, and Leia, for anyone that knows Melanie, is a 3/5, and she calls the line three the phoenix, because we tend to it's like everything burns to the ground, but then we have that ability to rise from anything. And it becomes our strength. Absolutely. So it's nice to know that now. I wish I'd known it a lot earlier.
I know. It's like we wish that we would know because a lot of the things that make us who we are, like we end up being like ashamed of them or like we feel like it's not good.
Mm.
And yeah, I wish everyone would just have learned their human design from young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes a big
Mhm.
difference.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the fourth line.
Yeah, so the fourth line is called the opportunist. So the fourth line is the person who is meant to just um, really connect to people. It's a relationship oriented line. So it's all about getting opportunities, living life, and having this like healthy exchange with other people.
Mm.
There's an interesting aspect of the fourth line, which is about the bargain. And any relationship they're in needs to be mutually beneficial. And so, they're usually great at networking, even though they don't think they are, but they're really great at networking. They're really great at connecting to the right people for the right things so that they can have a great exchange back and forth. So that's a really essential part of the fourth line. What they have to be careful of is people pleasing because sometimes that person is not the right person for them, and that's not actually their community, and that's not the right network for them, and so they have to say no. And fourth lines can often, especially women fourth lines, because we're socialized to be nice to everyone, that can be quite challenging. And so they can really struggle with, being able to say no to people and recognizing when it's not a good bargain, when the relationship is actually not mutually beneficial. But
Yeah.
the opportunist is amazing. I mean, in work, in life, in relationships, often everything comes to them through someone that they know or someone that they know that knows someone else and on and on. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Community builders.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Exactly.
Fifth lines.
Fifth line. Okay. So the fifth line is uh the heretic. So the
Mm.
heretic is the person who is here to be really a hero as well. Sometimes they call it the heretic, sometimes they call it the hero, but it's the person who can either be put on the pedestal
Mm.
as the person who's going to save us all, or often, I like what you talked about earlier, can be burned at the stake.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's really, really challenging for fifth lines often to embrace and acknowledge the kind of what's the word projections that other people will put onto them because again they have a projection field similar to the second line but it's just very different. People don't really see them clearly. They project onto them who they are, so they're either the hero, the heretic, the villain,
Yeah.
and they really have a special purpose for being here. Often people who are fifth lines are here to have a positive impact
Mhm.
in a big way. So a lot of times you might Google the fifth line and you'll see people talking about fame in the fifth line and how, they don't want to be famous, they want to hide, but actually they can't help it because people see something in them and they
Yeah.
want their something from them, their expertise, their leadership. It's a very leadership oriented line.
Yeah.
So if you have a five in your human design, you really want to tap into any fears of being seen, any fears of being seen, any desires you have to lead, and really reconciling those two things. It's
Yeah.
a powerful thing to work with for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
got a lot of five lines in my house. It's an interesting dynamic, but it's also been very interesting
Oh,
to watch children go through school. I didn't know there were five
yes.
lines because I didn't understand the language, but
Hmm.
those projections, it's not an easy thing to carry until you've got some maturity.
Yeah, exactly. It is quite challenging. And a lot of times what happens is people try to hide
Mm.
and then they're not fulfilling what they're there to do. And so it can be really, Yeah, it can be really challenging.
Mm. Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the sixth
Six.
line, the role model.
The last one. Okay, so the sixth line is the role model.
Mm.
And the sixth line is interesting. It's very unique. We don't have time to go into it right now, but it actually has three different stages of life. The first stage is where, sorry if you can hear my little boy, I think he's having a moment trying to go to bed right now in the
Yeah,
background.
I can't hear him.
But okay. Oh, perfect. So the sixth line, the first 30 years of life are where they often are in more of a third line, where it's trial and error, wanting to try different things.
Yeah.
The second period of life, up until age 50, is where they are observing. They take a step back, take a breather. Whew, okay, we did a lot of trial and error. Now it's time to observe and learn and figure out like what we learned from all of this.
Mm.
And there's a lot of wisdom gained in that time. Then from age 50 on, and these are not, I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, so I'm not really a role model until I'm over 50.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what it is. It's finally at a certain age, and it can be different for each person, but they say 50, you realize that you do not care to be judged by anyone else and that you don't give a damn anymore. And so you fully can step into being the role model at
Yeah.
that point because you're not trying to please anyone. And so six lines have a really beautiful kind of path and purpose, which is about observation, wisdom, and being someone who can take us to the next level. It's like very kind of ascension coded, the person who can help us to refine and make things better,
Mm.
but only by sharing their story. They've got to share their story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's fascinating, and I think as you know, as the women are listening to this,
Mhm.
rather if you don't know what your lines are, rather than getting caught up in not knowing what your lines are, just listen to the
Mhm.
what defines each of them, and you will probably
Yes.
pick what you are from that. It's interesting to try and pick it first, and then if you discover later, it's just
Yes.
confirmation. But
Yes.
yeah, it
Mhm.
once you start to learn the language and learn what it means and what it looks like, you will start to see it in other people, and that's a
Mhm.
really powerful thing in
Mhm.
building relationships with people, when you can understand that we are all wired differently. We're not supposed to be wired the same.
Yes.
So
Yes. Exactly.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for touching on that. I just think it's such an
Welcome.
extraordinary life-changing tool to have this understanding.
Mhm.
So to let's move now into astrology. And I think it's, one of my favorite subjects is leadership. And really
Mhm.
when we move into, I mean, the astrology conversation is so enormous. There's so many things that we could touch on, but I
Yeah.
think considering that the era that we're in, it's the age of Aquarius, and there is this rising of the feminine that is underway. And so
Yeah.
I would love you to touch on what that means for people that have heard it, but
Mhm.
we're not yet understanding what that means.
Mhm.
Um, let's start there.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So, it's interesting with Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. So Pluto has now moved into Aquarius. A lot of people point at that as one of the examples of like big Aquarian energy coming in. Pluto's in Aquarius for the next 20 years, I believe, 19, 20 years, and just fully moved in last year in November. And it is really a time when we are focused on the future and how to make the future better, but not necessarily only better for us as individuals or a certain group of people. It's making the future better for the community. And
Yeah.
so Aquarius has a lot of different aspects. It's ruled by the planet Uranus, and so it's very much about technology and communication or aspects of it. It's an air sign. But let's talk like focus on the community aspect. So community being at the heart of why we want to make things better
Yeah.
rather than just because we can or because we want to try something or because we want to push technology further. There's a heart to it,
Yeah.
and there's I would say, an ethics to it
Yeah.
that is important to acknowledge. Um, and I think that's where some of this feminine leadership energy comes in
Mm.
because it's not. just the good of the one. It's the good of the many, it's the good of the all, and wanting to take everyone into account and realizing that maybe there are a few ways, a few areas of society and culture that we can do things better. And I think that the feminine energy, especially, is better at seeing the big picture and seeing the whole, and wanting to include people rather than exclude. And so I think that's very Age of Aquarius, and I'm inspired and I'm very excited to see what's coming. I think there's going to be a lot of upheaval, obviously, in the astrology. I see that very clearly. A lot of astrologers have been talking about this, but we can't have change without upheaval.
Yeah. I like to think about it in terms of, for if we come back to the Empress archetype, we
Mm,
are, it is the birthing of something new. And for any woman
mhm,
that's given birth, whether you have or haven't, we know that
mhm.
that comes with pain, struggle,
Yes,
uncertainty. To
yes.
give birth to something is a
Mhm.
massive undertaking.
Yes.
But
You know what's
there,
amazing? Can I say something on that really
yes.
quickly? I just saw this morning, the sun today, at the moment that we're recording, has just moved into gate 60, which is called the gate of limitation and the gate of acceptance. And in the I Ching, this gate is all about recognizing, it's pulling from gate 3, which is all about new beginnings. And it's recognizing that when we have new beginnings, there will be like a moment of limitation. There will be a moment of like, oop, pull back. Oop, we hit a speed bump. Oop, this didn't quite work. But accepting that
Yeah.
is what's required in order to move forward.
Yeah.
If we shy away from the tough stuff, we will never move forward. That's the lesson of gate 60. And that's just exactly what we're talking about, which is beautiful.
I give my clients often the prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is so appropriate with everything that we're facing at the moment. But also the visual and the analogy of birthing a baby, birthing something new. There's magic on the other side. There's
Mm,
absolute beauty and magic on the other side.
mm,
And to ground ourselves in the values of transcendental values of truth, goodness, and beauty. And goodness is not to be good, it is for the
mhm,
highest good of all. And that's where
mhm.
we're moving into, which is very different to the picture that we've been in for some centuries now.
Very true. Well said.
It's exciting. So let's look at this in terms of leadership. And we've just talked
Mhm,
about leadership, as a fifth line thing, but I really want to
mhm.
have this conversation about women as leaders in community through who we're being. It's not,
Yeah.
anyway, I would love to just keep the conversation going there because I
Mhm.
think we have a massive role to play in what's
Mhm.
unfolding.
Yes, I fully agree. I think that women absolutely are already, but absolutely need to see themselves at being at the forefront of the positive change.
Yeah.
And I think knowing the tools of like who I am, what I specifically bring to this fight, I guess you could say. I don't want to call it a battle, but like to this moment, knowing what I bring to this moment, um, I think is invaluable because a lot of times people count themselves out, right? They count themselves out because they're like, oh, well, I don't know enough about this, or I don't know, I'm not extroverted, or I'm not whatever. And I think that nowadays, more and more people are waking up to realize that anyone could make change.
Yeah.
Anyone can be a leader. Anyone has something valuable to bring. And so that's why I love looking at the astrology and the human design because it brings a new perspective and a new dignity and respect and honoring. There's a lot of, I love that word. I'm really been meditating a lot on that word recently, but an honoring of who we are. Mhm.
An honoring and a sovereignty as well. When I
Mhm.
think about the Empress, it's a very different picture to the Queen. The Queen is the sort
Mm.
of the monarch that
Mhm.
rules, whereas the Empress is equal power, just different. She doesn't
Mm,
bow to anybody, but nobody bows to her. We are, it's this
mm,
very beautiful sense of working together.
nice.
And that's why I love the Empress as the archetype.
I love archetypes of all. I'm such an archetype junkie.
Me
Yes, I love
too.
the way that you see and talk about the Empress. Mhm.
Yeah, me too. And the classic, I often look for archetypes in movies and why I'm so drawn to different movies. And one of my all-time favorite movies is Chocolat. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah. Oh, it's been a long time. I'm a
Yeah,
movie person, but yeah, it's been a long time. But
yeah.
I remember. Are you going to talk about the? Wait, sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
won't say what you're
that's
going to
like
say.
my reason for bringing that up is Vian, the
Mhm.
main character. She arrives in this village that's full of all sorts of domination and unrest, and it's not what she does; it's who she is that brings this
Mm,
radical difference and this beautiful transformation to an entire village. And it's when you think about a character like that, you don't think of her as a leader, but it is through who she's
mm,
being and her leadership for herself that she
mm.
transforms an entire village. It's an amazing example of what I mean when I talk about the Empress.
I need to watch that movie again. You're making me so excited to see that again. The main thing that I remember about that movie was that when they enter the village, it's because the winds have
Yeah.
brought them there. And
Yes.
when the winds change, they move on.
Yeah.
That always stuck with me. Like I remember nothing else, but that always stuck with me. And I always felt that that was me in some ways too, or I could identify with that. It's like knowing when the winds change.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, the North Wind. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
it's a magic story. I reference it in so many things. I see all the different gene keys in the different characters and the
Ooh,
human design, and
love
it's
that.
just like this. Yeah, it's amazing.
Love it.
So,
Mhm.
how about is there anything else? You've got a beautiful experience that you're going to give our
Mhm.
audience. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to before we dive into that? Um, I think you talked
I
there was
think,
I think there was a conversation about midheaven. Does that
yes.
feel like something that you want to bring in here?
Yes, I would love to. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So within my work, working with the specific point, you'll find astrologers, we get into certain things become our signature. So you may find an astrologer that just loves working with Black Moon Lilith and wild feminine energy, or you might find an astrologer that loves working with the moon and the inner mother. I love to work with the midheaven. And so the midheaven is a part of the chart that many people are not familiar with. It is quite new to a lot of people, but it is a very important aspect of ourselves, which is how we can be of service to others. And it's very much a public oriented one. So it's not necessarily about the home, but it's about who you are in the world, in your community, and how you are of service to others without even realizing it. Because a lot of times the midheaven is a hidden talent or a hidden, as I like to say, zone of genius that someone has. And so working with that point, the highest point in the sky at the moment you were born, think about that. Like we always think of the sun being its strongest when it's at noon. So this is noon, like location at the moment that you were born. No matter what time you were born, this is the highest point. And so it really is your gift that you bring to the world. And no matter what stage of life that you're in, I think that knowing and honoring and understanding your gift is a precious thing. So I love to introduce people to the midheaven. Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, there's so much to discover and so much to find out. It's just I can, I find these tools, they're unfailingly, they all come together. There's, one doesn't ever feel separate to the other.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
love that
they're
because it just,
all,
yeah,
yeah.
the picture becomes richer and richer and richer. And the more I look at it all, the more I'm
Yes,
just, it's just these moments of, oh my goodness. Yeah.
yes. It's so true. Like I've studied so many different systems. I've looked at Enneagram, many different versions of numerology, like tarot. They're all singing the same, like we're all harmonizing.
Yes.
There's not one system where you're like, oh, that's me or that's not me. They all make sense. And I
Mm.
think they're all tapping into a universal truth about ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to
And
see.
it's
Mhm.
traditional wisdom for modern women. It's as applicable for us today as it was for
Yes.
people, centuries ago. And the idea that, I'm with my clients at the moment, I do a lot of stories, Grimm's fairy tales, and women who run with the wolves, and so on and so on.
Yes.
And I've got a copy of Grimm's that's over 200 years old, and the stories, they're still relevant today. And all of these, tarot and astrology and human design, and they just create this incredibly rich pie, and we get to nibble on.
Yes. It's so true.
And when you talked before about hoping that human design comes into education, I
Mhm.
just see, like if we brought these traditional tools back,
Mhm.
and this is what children learned before they were being launched
Yes.
into adulthood, the world would be a vastly
Storytelling,
different place.
archetypes, really.
Oh,
Storytelling is, the old woman in the woods, the princess and the cows. They're all archetypes.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, okay. So what I want to do is I'll hand over to you,
Okay.
and I'll make you the host so that
Mhm.
you can walk us through the beautiful experience
Yes,
that you have.
I would
Okay.
love to. Amazing. All right. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can share some visuals with you all as I share more about the midheaven with you as well. So what I'm calling this is, elemental leadership, but you don't have to think of it as leadership only in a work or career sense, although this is also absolutely applicable to work and career because the midheaven rules that side of your life. But even aside from that, recently I did some readings for a luxury fashion client, and one of their VIP clients, he's wasn't working, but he said, "Well, I'm not working, but I'm doing charity work." I'm like, "That's work, That's absolutely us showing up for our community. Us, there's always an exchange, even if it's not money. And you bringing your, as I say, gift to the table is a beautiful way that you can express leadership as well. So I'm excited to share some of this with you. I have created 12 archetypes for the 12 different midheaven zodiac signs. So if you go to your astrology, I'm going to show you a picture of a birth chart so that you can see where the midheaven is. But if you pull up your astrology chart, pause this at this moment and make sure you've got that. That would be great so that you can follow along with what I'm going to share as well. I always start off with a quote, and I kind of like this one. Whether you aspire to be a millionaire or a billionaire, it's not about that. It's more about the fact that the powers that be have always known that astrology is essential to what they do and to how they move in the world. And I think this quote, the reason this quote is so often used by astrologers is to show that is that yes, maybe we've been hidden in the shadows for years, but the people who know have always known. So,
Yeah.
um, and so it's great now with the democratization of astrology, right? That everyone can study it. Anyone can gain this insight now. So I like to say that astrology reveals the energies that we were born with. It stops us from wasting our time on things that we're not great at. There are lots of things that I'm not good at, but the things I care about are the things that I am here to do in the world and that I'm really gifted at. So that's what astrology has also helped me to see and honor in myself is not trying to be someone that I'm not. Before I discovered astrology, I was trying hard. I was trying to be someone that I thought I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
When we stop trying to be someone else, everything is easier, things flow more. And that's why I love working with this specific placement, the midheaven, because it's very much about how people see us. And that can be a topic that is charged, that is kind of fraught with potholes, how people see us. And so if we can approach it in a way that is empowered, all the better for us. So the midheaven, this is what the midheaven looks like in a chart. So if you are looking at your circular birth chart, you'll have your rising sign, your ascendant off to the, what is this, the left-hand side. I always get confused right and left. The left-hand side. And then if you look up at the top, at the cusp between the ninth and the 10th house, there will usually be like a thicker line or an arrow or something that says MC. What that stands for in the Latin is medium celli, I think you pronounce it, which means the top of the sky. And so the top of the sky for this example is Taurus. So I just wanted to show you that's what you're looking for when you're looking at your chart to figure out, okay, what is my midheaven? Well, it's the zodiac sign of this particular point in the 10th house, or that's coming into the 10th house because you read counterclockwise. Okay. So, what does the midheaven represent? It represents your highest self. It represents your reputation, how people know you and what they see. So, which is interesting because often we don't see our midheaven because it's not actually for us. It's not our work with ourselves. That's the rising sign. It's our work with others, our gift we have to give, not to receive. And so sometimes we have this blind spot of not even knowing what our gift is. And I love revealing it to people. It's amazing. So it's your reputation, it's how you shine, and it's what the world wants from you. Um, like I say, it is your leadership energy. By embodying it intentionally in your life or brand, you magnetize those who love your leadership style. We're not here to work with people that, like our styles don't match, like you're not for me. We're here to work with people who are like, that's what I need. I love that energy. I want to be in that energy. We often resonate with the rising sign more. And so, if anyone's ever doing personal development work or working on the relationship with self-love, self-acceptance, I always recommend working with the rising sign first. I like to talk about the differences here, also called the ascendant. This is more intimate to us. It's about it represents literally in astrology our relationship with ourself. It represents our identity. But with the midheaven, it's about being out in the world and being of service to others, whether that's our community or people we work with. So let's dive into your cosmic leadership archetype. What I want to talk about today is how. Oh, and by the way, this is just a little guide. So if you're looking at your astrology chart and you're like, I don't know what this symbol is, you can just take a little screenshot of this. And you can say, oh, okay, this is Aries, this is Libra, and you can find your midheaven sign and recognize it without having an astrologer sitting next to you. Okay. So the four leadership styles by element. So I'd love to share this with you today. Um, I love working with the elements in astrology. I mean, not only as someone who identifies as a priestess and a witch, but the elements, it's this way of understanding life, but this way of connecting to the earth as well and connecting to our physical realm. And so in astrology, which can be quite heady, quite, airy, really, we can get lost in the concepts, but I like to ground things with the elements as well. And so this can be really wonderful if someone wants to meditate on their midheaven, tap into the element that I'm going to share with you. So, if you are a fire sign midheaven, that means you either have Aries, MC, Leo, or Sagittarius. And these little names and quotes, those are my archetypes. If you want to learn more, I do have a free ebook that goes into each one of the archetypes. I won't have time to go into all of them today, but I want to talk about fire. Okay, so if this is your fire sign midheaven, then you are an activator, which means that your gift to the world is being someone who motivates people, someone who brings this action-oriented energy. Even if in other areas of your life you are the calm and grounded, wise one, out in the world, what you do is you help get people going. You help get people out of their comfort zone. You help them recognize when it's time to go and to take up the staff and go on the journey and go on the adventure. I like to think about the hero's journey This is like your Gandalf that's like, all right, let's get out there. Like, all right, it's time to go. Come on, come
Yeah.
on. Let's like make things happen, you know? And you're activators. And it's such a gift because so many people need to have someone in their lives who is that fiery leader who can say, you can do this, you've got this, let's go. Now, if you are a earth sign, and feel free to interrupt me at any time if you'd like to, Edwina. But so if you are an earth sign midheaven, you are a stabilizer. I like to use the crystal to represent that here. So the stabilizers, and that is my Taurus midheavens, Virgo midheavens, and Capricorn midheavens. If you are a stabilizer, you are someone who brings the calm, grounded energy. That is your gift. Even if you are a Leo sun and an Aries moon, if you've got that like earth sign midheaven, your energy that people want from you is the grounded, is the trustworthy, is the person who will always be there no matter what. You are the rock of your community. And that's what they receive from you. And so really embracing this aspect of yourself that wants to make things right, that wants to do things right, that wants to bring stability and safety, that's a beautiful thing. So if you are an earth sign midheaven, really embrace and celebrate that side of you that is the stabilizer. And then air. So if you are an air sign midheaven, that means you either have Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, then you are an innovator. And so you really are someone who's blowing into town and bringing the, new ideas, bringing change. You may be someone who has the gift of the gab. You may be someone who just makes people think differently. I always like to say that, like, if you have an air sign midheaven, you're here to blow people's minds. And you're here to change people's minds and to help them to see a new perspective and a different way. It's very Age of Aquarius, because Aquarius is an air sign. And so it's like, all right, maybe you've been doing this for a long time, or maybe you've been stuck in a pattern. Well, it's time to figure this out. It's different from fire energy. Fire energy is all about action, but air energy is all about the mind. It's all about the way we see things, our mindset, our perspective. And you are such a gift to your community because you can help people to see things differently and to change the way they see the world. Last but not least is our water sign midheavens. So if this is you, that means you have Cancer as the zodiac sign as your midheaven, Scorpio, or Pisces. So I call these the connectors. And this water energy is so strong. It is very much a heart-centered, emotionally healthy kind of leadership. It's someone who feels what people feel or can help people to feel what they need to feel. It's it's a deep one, right? Still waters run deep. It's a deep, emotional, vulnerable, personable energy. So as leaders, these water sign midheavens, are all about how do I connect to my community's heart. And they're very much about inclusivity. Often work or the community relationships that they have feel like family. It's not like we're colleagues, we are a family. We are, and they help people to feel included. They're major community builders. And so that water energy, is just really very needed, I think, especially now. They're all needed, but we really need those people that are able to be emotionally open, understanding, and just connecting. In the loneliness epidemic, we need more water sign leaders for sure.
Yeah.
Now, if you are interested in diving into your archetype, you could screenshot this as well, your individual archetype within the element. Then just have a look here. So you'll see the sign. So, for example, Aries is the archetype of the maverick, and they are here to break the rules. So you can read your individual one. I am Sagittarius, so I am the guide, and I am here to teach what I know. And so this is why I have slides, because I am such a teacher. I'm always wanting to like, ooh, let me break this down. Ooh, how can I make this, you know? And it's just a natural thing. And until I knew that I was a Sagittarius, a fire sign midheaven, I never quite understood what it was that people wanted from me, but they loved it when I like got things going,
Yeah.
activated them. People always walk away saying, I feel better. I feel like I could do anything, like I could take over the world. That's that fire sign energy. So, really tapping into what your gift is and what you bring to your community, I just think is such a beautiful thing. So, these are your leadership strengths that I've kind of talked through, gone through those four elements. Um, Work on embodiment. I mean, if you want homework, my teacher had work on embodiment. Work with the element of your archetypes as a stabilizer, a connector, an innovator, or an activator, and recognize the Achilles heel, but really focus on the strengths. The strengths are why you're here. You know, it's such a great thing. I do have a free ebook here on my website. And I just did want to mention as well that I have a freebie to offer you, especially as part of this summit, which is ta-da, it's called Gifts into Gold. And it's a master class that I did last year, which is all about learning to use both human design and astrology in a bold way to elevate your work. So if you are in work or in that kind of position, then absolutely, I hope that this supports you. I hope it's interesting to you and it supports you to know yourself better using your cosmic blueprint.
Yeah. Love, 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 love. And so excited to do that workshop.
I
You know,
love it. I'm proud of it.
you
Yeah.
said I tried to capture your exact words. Um, your midheaven, working with your higher self.
Mm.
No,
Mhm.
astrology. I can't. I've written
Oh,
quite a few
yeah,
notes as
your
we're
highest
talking.
self, your reputation. Yeah. Mhm.
But it's also this, one of the things that I feel so passionate about is that, and why I often start with a conversation of where we were launched into womanhood and adulthood, is that we
Mhm.
so often follow the path of the should. So you get certain marks
Mm.
in school, and mum and dad think it would be a good
Yes.
idea, and you show an aptitude for this. And so you get into this course, and then you end
Mhm.
up becoming a teacher or a nurse, like whatever
Mhm.
it is, and you just
Yeah.
stay on that path.
Yeah.
But when there is that consistent feeling of not being fulfilled by the work that you're
Mhm.
doing, this astrology, human design, what Rachel has just given you is this extraordinary gift to see where your strengths lie. And when
Mhm.
you're doing something, the work that I do, and I know the work that Rachel does, it's like you can't not do it. Once you've found
Yeah.
it, I have
Yeah.
no ambition to retire. The idea of not doing what I do is
Yeah.
just like the life force would leak out of me,
Mhm.
because when you find your thing, and it doesn't mean it's paid work, it's definitely voluntary work,
Mhm.
what it can
Mhm.
be, that's a broader conversation. But
Yeah.
finding your thing, your role, the gifts that you were born with is what the world needs right now. We're all here for a very good reason. We all have a
Yes.
higher purpose, and when you discover that, life takes on a very different flavor.
It's so true. It's so true. It's really beautiful to connect to that side of you that knows that there's a reason.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of what my kind of dark night of soul was feeling like I was purposeless. And I was like, I know I'm smart. I know I have talent. I know there's reason why I'm here and I don't know what it is. And it was so frustrating for me. And
Yeah.
so, yes, I think that working with any system, but especially these systems, can be so illuminating. And that was it's such a like a relief in a way. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. Now I see. And like you said, once you see, there's no going back, which is
Yeah.
beautiful.
The
Yeah.
very, like the essence of this show is, yes, about the empress, but to blossom and flourish, my definition, to blossom is to become the woman you were born to be, and to flourish is to live the life you were born to live. And the
Mm,
tools that you have shared today is the path to finding those answers, and it's a gift. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel. I have loved this conversation, and we've known each other for only a minute, but I already love you to bits.
thank you. Oh, I
I
appreciate that so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
I feel like we may do this again. I feel like
Let's
there's a
do it
bigger and
again.
bigger conversation that might come.
Mhm.
But for now, thank
I'm
you
in.
so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is such a beautiful space. And, I can feel the energy of all the people that are part of this gathering and part of this summit. And what we're doing here is so important together, having these conversations, sharing this wisdom. I appreciate you so much for creating this space and inviting me into it too.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. All right, beautiful souls, that is it from us for this episode. And I'll be back to see you again soon. So much love and bye for now.